Hi, welcome. I'm Kevin from Enya Labs, which is the core contributor to the Boba Network. And Boba Network is an optimistic rollup on Ethereum, but also on Binance Smart Chain. And what Boba does basically, it has created a new way for your smart contracts to interact with the real world, and we call it hybrid compute. So before we get into this, a quick intro about myself. I'm a blockchain engineer, so if there are any questions related to that, feel free to drop them into the chat. Happy to answer if I can. And yeah, starting out, let's talk about Ethereum for a second. Well, what is Ethereum? It's a great ledger, right? Is a it allows you to write Turing complete smart contracts on its ledger, basically, while Bitcoin does not allow you to do so, right? It has a very limited scripting language, what you can see here on the left side as an example, and on the right side, the Ethereum approach. But still, if we want to compute more complex problems on Ethereum, you're still highly limited on what you can do there, right? For a lot of reasons, they're completely legitimate, right? And as you can see, we have here two cute little pictures of the Ethereum's computing performance in 2015 and 2022. It hasn't really changed since then. And as said, a lot of valid reasons why this is the case or has stayed the case. But it limits you in terms of a couple of use cases, what you can do on chain, right? Because if you want to compute more complex algorithms or do certain kind of stuff, it gets either really expensive within your smart contract, or it's not even really possible, right? Or you would need to go with oracles and these kind of things, and that then degrades oftentimes either user experience because it takes a couple of transactions before your data arrives and these kind of things. But let's go over the possibilities, the approaches in a few seconds as well. Basically, uh, now today there are even many more approaches what you can follow to get off-chain data that you either get from off-chain APIs or from computing yourself more complex algorithms off-chain on-chain, right? From chain links, services to a lot of others, right? And all of them have their own set of advantages and disadvantages that are great, right? And Boba Network basically has created a new approach that focuses more on the UX side and computing side of things. So what we can see here, this chart has skyrocketed in the last few years. So as you can see, this chart just goes until 2022. But we all know due to Arbitrum, Optimism, and Boba Network, and a lot of other layer 2 networks out there, that the rollup ecosystem has exploded, right? And that now creates the question of if this is a great enabler for these off-chain computation use cases, right? Because what do optimistic rollups or rollups in general actually do? They try to remove the load from Ethereum as a now most likely settlement layer for rollups, which sit on top of these L1 chains and move them up, basically, right? And hybrid compute allows you to do a similar thing, but basically then even taking out uh, very heavy computation from the layer 2 network or Boba network in that case to your own API, right? Or whatever you want to compute. So how does it work in general? Right now, hybrid compute depends on the single sequencer architecture, which is an architecture that has been followed for a lot of reasons by almost every rollup out there, which isn't great in terms of decentralization, but it is what we have right now in the majority of the market. And I have to say here that hybrid compute, for that reason and a lot of other reasons, is being redesigned right now. So what you will see in the next couple of slides is how it works right now, but this will change over the course over the next couple of months from the architecture side of things, but most likely not from the user standpoint, right? So if you write smart contracts right now that follow that, it will still continue to work. It just will change how it works under the hood. So basically, hybrid compute right now depends on the single sequencer architecture and allows you to do off-chain calls or to do more complex computation off-chain in a single line of code. And that's the power here, right? When you use an oracle of some kind, you always make the call, then you have to wait, and then in a callback in your smart contract, you receive the information, right? Either it has been an off-chain computation or a quote or whatever that you get from the off-chain world uh, into your smart contract, right? And the power now with hybrid compute is you get it in a single line of code as you are used to in the Web2 space. You basically make your API call, get the information right on, right? So that's the power here. And you can see two examples below, like basically getting a super strong pseudo random number from off-chain, on-chain, and also basically getting quotes from external APIs, or just doing, as you mentioned, super complex algorithms off chain. You can imagine all sorts of crazy use cases this way, even when you want to go the hyper compliance route, right, with KYC and these kinds of things are really easy possible with hybrid compute, which you can't that easily do with oracles right now. So basically, the main idea is you have also you have a layer 2 graph, or right now we're basically reworking or are, have launched our Anchorage upgrade, which is basically aligned with the Bedrock specs from Optimism. And we have basically adapted a new client now, layer 2 Aragon. So also here, I want to avoid the confusion. Layer 2 gap is what we use right now on mainnet. In a couple of months, we will use layer 2 Aragon, which we have adapted uh, so that it can be used for the layer 2 ecosystem. But basically how it works right now is someone makes a call to layer 2 gap and it intercepts your smart contract call. I think that slide is a little bit better because it gives you a little bit more context. You have the RPC call, layer 2 GAF then actually makes the API call and it caches it on the sequencer and also basically the full architecture, but basically intercepts the call and caches it on the nodes. And once you make the smart contract call, within a certain period of time, the call will expire, of course, so that you have always up-to-date data. But within a certain period of time, you can make that one-line call within your smart contract and get the information right away and can process it in your smart contract. So that is basically how it works under the hood. Right now, the changes are in a handful of files, but with the changes that are coming now, the differences will be much, much smaller. We might even move them onto the application layer for my knowledge, but let's see. But this is how what kind of files have been changed on layer 2 GAF right now. And yeah, basically this I just want to highlight that again, enables you to do all sorts of crazy use cases, which are mostly reliant on great user experience, which we are in fact still heavily lacking in the Web3 space. And also, let's say, certain use cases that are in need of direct computation, right, or direct off-chain data without making the user wait. As said, KYC use case is a really simple one. It's not the most famous one. I totally understand that. But just imagine you can now restrict certain smart contract calls based on if the user or the wallet has been KYC'd or not. So that could be really interesting for the next couple of years, where everything needs to be much more compliant, unfortunately, or not, right? But of course, a lot of other things you can do as well, uh, which can be account abstraction, for example, smart wallets, where you again need off-chain data oftentimes, so that you can have things like social recovery if you lose your private key or whatever, so that you can still recover your funds and all these sorts of things, right? So that's pretty cool stuff, I would dare to say. And of course, there are always a couple of things where hybrid compute, um, the former name is Turing, so not to confuse you here as well, where it's not suitable, right? So that's just that I want to mention here as well. Basically, not for really highly security reliant applications. Basically, when you go deep into DeFi, it's not recommended because it basically has a centralized backend behind of it, right? Which of course allows you to make these direct calls, which is great from a user standpoint. But of course, if you have another focus, then go with something else. So with that, I would say, yeah, thank you for tuning in. And if you have any questions, happy to answer them.